Howdy, you delicious people! I'm here today to review Riddick. So this is the movie that is to supposedly finalize the franchise, but we would come to find that that is actually incorrect. Come to find out that there is to be a movie being shot within 2024 that may get done sometime this year, or who knows, called Riddick Furia. So supposedly the concept of that movie so far is that Riddick had gone on to, I guess, find Vaco and then find Furia and have some seemingly problems within that planet. But so before we would hope to have a possibility that that movie is ever going to be an existing thing and a trailer, whatever, we have to go on and talk about this movie, Riddick. In all honesty, this movie is to be very slow paced because it is to really take so much, I feel, from Pitch Black, even creating a character that is to be descendantly connected to the Pitch Black movie, to try to continue to connect both the first movie and second movie together in one film. And oddly enough, you would think that it would be so hard for people to probably find each one of these three films because one of them is called Pitch Black and then the other is called Chronicles of Riddick and then now this one is called Riddick. How will people know that this is to go on and be a franchise because of the multiply differently changing names at some point? But regardless, I guess it logically is what it is, that everybody, I guess, is just to be a movie buff, it seems. Or know that they're, when they probably Google this movie, other movies will show up as well. So, and then also probably a lot of people, even in comments, probably won't remember what the very first original movie is compared to all these others. But so, what is Riddick about? So we come to find that Riddick has gone on to gain the Lord Marshal crown, and he is to become this king. So it seems that he has to just soften up because of over time he's just been sitting on this throne telling people what to do. And with that said, oddly, we're still having Riddick, who is consistently, if mercs weren't chasing after him, now there is to be necromongers that are trying to consistently assassinate him because he is a kind of outsider to them, because he will not go on and believe in their faith. He won't go on and do the necromonger way. So this then forces Riddick, because he is such an outsider, to just separate himself from the necromongers, to try to come up with some bargain to strike, to say it's like, well, hey man, I need to go on and I need to be where I belong. So what can I do to just make that happen? And so we go on to then have Riddick, who assumes that he is going to finally make it to his home planet, to find out something quite differently. And so that then forces Riddick to try and go on and zero the clock and kind of realize that he needs to go on and not only heal himself up, but then go on to find that Furian again, find that animal side again, and go on to get the strength that he is to go on and have to face off against these mud demons that are to seemingly be quite similar to, of course, the monsters that are to be in the very first film. And then also go on to try and escape this planet, because he is to realize that there is a cloud of monsters that is making his way. So that is to kind of push the timetable to just be like, well, okay, like I need to go on and force mercenaries to come and get me, but then also I have to team up with them to try and escape this planet. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so we have these unlikely people working together forcibly at some point, and we really have to go on and figure out whether or not that these people are going to coexist. If it means that they're going to go on and be able to survive this whole onslaught of this planet. So, so with that said, like this movie was entertaining, but it was not as like I feel as epic or as a big a scale as of course the last movie. And so recently I thought that this movie was I want to say it's just a solid to just good movie. To me, like there's so much about this movie that like is so slowed down that you have to like put time lapses in this movie so you can go on and reasonably just have like some kind of film that is to just be more entertaining beyond just Vin Diesel needing to heal himself up in this film and go through this like castaway of a movie. And also like it doesn't seem like we are to go into like a smooth transition from the last film to now this film. It's like, well, here's our character now. And like they kind of do the exact same thing with Chronicles of Riddick, where it's just like, well, here's our character now. And I could probably understand that because like we're probably never gonna go on and get like a smooth transitions between these movies because logically like Riddick is to always have these mercenaries come after him. So logically, like we're not having Riddick always staying in one place. And if anyways, like I guess this is probably a much better smoother transition in Riddick than it probably was from the first film to the second film. But I think that there is a whole animated movie that goes in between, or an animated series, I'm not quite sure, between the first and second film to help with that, which I didn't see. But with that said, so I did definitely want to give this movie a thumbs up. I did really enjoy guys like Dave Bautista being in this film also, even though reasonably, like, besides his kind of like one liners here and there and the funny little gags that he had, like, reasonably, like, this character is to only be this big beefy guy that is still up against Riddick at some point, and and of course go on and have uh other characters that of course are to be uh, just very familiar to the genre, like Katie Sackhoff that plays Doll in this movie, uh, is to just be like, man, like you look at Katie Sackhoff in this film and you're like, man, I know why she's such a good actor because of this film right here. Like she's very intimidating as well as also um, being this character who I can feel can kind of play any kind of character, any kind of style of character. And also you can go on and see how this movie is connected to all the others. With of course the Johns character that is to be connected to the William Johns character from the first movie, as well as also Vaco and the Necromongers being connected from the second film, and eventually towards the end of the film, we come to find that Vaco is getting his transcendence. So, with that said, I think it's about that time to just kind of break down this movie, and also where can you go on to see this film, especially if you're interested in going and checking it out, because without a doubt, I'm sure probably the way of which that you can probably currently, to the second this recording, probably see this film is to probably rent or buy it, or there's probably some inconvenient, goofy way to say that you can see this film. I go on through a bulk of time and just go through one app to just kind of see most of everything that I review on here. So that, of course, will have me recommend to a lot of people to see an app called Zelliphonic. Zelivonic. Zelliphonic. And be able to see this movie as well as the other Pitch Black and Chronicles of Riddick film and this one for absolutely free. So, with that said, yeah, like there isn't much for me to go on and talk about via this film besides just explaining what happens in this film and then just really just saying um my grading and whatever about it, because again, like it's a copy and paste of Pitch Black. uh if anything, also, like, I feel like they went on and they tried to invent like weapons and ships and stuff for this film, but like none of the names of any of that stuff really makes a whole hill of beans worth of difference for me to go on and know about them. But I do have certain notes that go on and explain certain locations or certain uh, weapons or things, or like the Cyclops that is to be the new goofy sensor gadget thing, and the nodes and stuff like that. So, with that said, yeah, I think it's about that time to just push on into spoilers. Let me know in the comments below what is to be your so far favorite Riddick film. Maybe you like Pitch Black. Maybe you like The Chronicles of Riddick as your favorite film. Or maybe you like Riddick as your favorite film, because really it is to remind you so much of the first film, and you love the first film also. Who knows? Maybe you were to stumble upon this film and none of the others. But at the end of the day, you can say that you can see all three of these for absolutely free if you haven't caught any number of them, or logically you're finally going on and finding this here. So, with that said, let's go on into the deep dish action spoilers for me to go on and just rattle off all the stuff that happens in this film. Really, I think the best character I feel that is coming out of this film is honestly the Santana guy. Like, that guy was so funny, and also like so like he was a really good villain character. And then also, like, besides uh like Katie Sackhoff and like Dave Bautista's, yeah, like uh pretty much the consistent thing is to always continue to just enjoy the Vin Diesel Riddick character. So, with that said, let's go on and let's go into spoilers. I'm going to whip out my cast list and whatever little tiny bit of notes that I have to try and figure out how to talk about this film, because I think it's about that time to go on and do so. So when we go on and when we talk about the monsters and the alien things within this movie, there are certain animals that do mimic actual animal names. And so I'm probably not going to go and take the time to say like alien jackal and alien vulture and uh, mud demon may be very vague within this film, because there are small uh, mud demons, and then there are big ones, and then the really big ones, and like so on and so yeah. So uh and then there's also the weird, goofy snake eel looking things that are to be swimming around, and the little batch of water that Riddick falls in to try to hide away from the jackals in this movie. But anyways, regardless of that said, I think everything else will be covered. I may trip or flip or fall over some names of this film because really I didn't go through the cast list beforehand all that well before going into this. So maybe I might pause and just kind of thumb through the cast list a little bit more to try as much as possible to get a little bit more familiar with these names because logically I can take that time in between pausing. So that said, let's pause here. Let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this movie. Yeah. All right. One thing to also note, probably before we get on to spoilers, is that this movie has a lot more skin in it than the other seemingly two movies did, and really is to go on and like when we get to having Riddick's character be this king, like he has all these women in his bed, and also we end up seeing Kitty Sackhoff in all of her glory. So, reasonably within this film, for those of you that are interested in a little bit of skin, you'll go on and see that at some point within this film. So, spoilers now, let's get into this whole film. So, in the very beginning of it, we have Riddick that is to have his hand stuck out of seemingly this rock pile, and this alien vulture is pecking at it. And so Riddick is to go on and mention that it seems that he has gone on to be like written off or left for dead just kind of so many times that uh, that reasonably you would think everybody would know that he would kind of figure a way out of it by now. And then even also like the day of his birth to kind of have that same thing kind of happen. And so Riddick is to go on and crawl his way out of the hole that he is in and is to stumble upon this planet where he, of course, to go on and find that there are seemingly animals that exist within this planet that are trying to go on and hunt him down and kill him. So Riddick has this unusual armor on him, and also his goggles are different from the other film. So Riddick goes on and needs to adjust his leg by putting his leg in between these two rocks and then snapping it so it his leg snaps into place, and then he needs to go on and create this kind of makeshift brace with his leg also, where he kind of puts these screws in to his leg as a way to heal his wound. And so Riddick goes on and finds these group of jackals that are all going on to try and find Riddick. So Riddick then is to go on and try to find this seemingly uh, uh, small amount of water that he thinks that he can drink, and then he goes to cup it, and then realizes as he sniffs it that he can't drink it. So but he goes into this water and these seemingly snakes or eels are kind of swimming all around him, and the jackals are still waiting there. And so Riddick goes on to get to the point where he's like slowing down his heartbeat, and then the jackals, it seems, are all to be leaving him alone. Once finally then Riddick does go on to seemingly pop his head out of the water, or not fully pop his head out of the water. It seems like he is just kind of like right at here, which I'm like, okay, like you obviously need to pop your head back up so that way you can breathe. Like, why aren't you going on and having your first thing be like your mouth, and then the rest of your head it goes up? But then, so as Riddick is to take himself out of this water and try to rest himself a little bit, he is to be met by this jackal. So Riddick goes on and tries to fight this jackal off with this bone and smacks him around a bit, and then goes on to take uh, this little padding of shield like piece upon his armor to then use it as a frisbee to then have all of a sudden the dog just chase after this thing, so that way Riddick can go on to hope that he can get further to find an actual water source so he can take a drink. The problem with that is he is again met by this pack of jackals. So Rick is thinking that he's going to go on and probably get done in by the jackals, but we come to find that he is going to find there is a much more menacing thing here than said jackals. So we come to find these mud demons. These mud demons are to be like a combination between both like a panther that only has two legs and a scorpion. So like imagine like a panther and a scorpion like had a baby. Like that's what this thing looks like. It only has two legs and like it just has this weird goofy tail of a thing that is really also it seems has its mind of its own. So Riddick is going on and watching as these mud demons are to grab one of these jackals and kill it, and then all the other jackals run off. So Riddick going on and thinking like, oh, okay, well, like the worst must just be just there, and then he turns around and he realizes that he is to meet his own seemingly mud demon, and so Riddick is now grabbing this big massive bone to place into this monstrous thing's teeth so Riddick can try to figure out a way to get away. So Riddick is to then go on and just be like, well, hey man, like I need like a place to rest and like recoup from like the day I've been having. And he's like, man, like some people can go on and have some bad days, but man, like this is really bad. So Riddick goes on to find this hole, and he kind of chucks this rock to have it, this big huge rock uh, of a boulder like thing to kind of break into pieces. So Riddick can go on and take half of these pieces and kind of slide them together and kind of make like almost like a coffin for himself so he can just get some rest and sleep. And here's where we have to kind of backpedal now to transition from the second movie to now where he's at now. So, and why he's injured the way he is. So, in a lot of ways, this kind of reminds me of the animated movie Hulk uh, versus Wolverine, where like at the very first beginning of a part of it, we have Wolverine like facing off against the Hulk, and then we have to understand like why these two characters got the way they were. With Wolverine needing to go on and find out that like Hulk is just rampaging through the city, and so Wolverine has to go on and work with the government to take this guy down. And so with the flashback now that we're getting to kind of lead us back to the point of how Riddick got to this planet, so this unknown planet. So back with the Necromongers on their armada, we have Riddick that is to be sitting at this throne. He's to be given this weird hat of a crown, and he's to go on and look around, and all he sees is nooses upon his own neck. So Riddick is to go on and feel like an outsider, and if he is to have been running from mercs, now he's running from assassins that are within this whole necromonger community, because reasonably they see him as a man who is not keeping within the faith. So, like, he is a king, but like a king to nothing, a king to no one. But then again, we have characters like Vako who won't bring a sword to him because he's just trying to be like loyal and just a nice guy. So, and then also Vako can go and assume that like Riddick is probably going to get killed by any number of people and it doesn't have to be him. So Riddick goes on to get bedded by a number of women, and we have one of them, these consorts, and they end up talking to Riddick and mentioning how there's so many assassins after him, and that maybe he should go on and check the door to make sure that the guards are really still there for him. And so he does. And we also have the consort that ends up asking him, it's like, well, what's a way to a man's heart? And Riddick is like, well, between the ribs, and you need to twist it to make sure that you actually did it right. So we have Riddick that goes on to check his door to make sure that the guards are still there, and the woman that had gone on and talked to him, his consort, between all the other women, had tried to assassinate him and stab him in the back, going on and saying like, well, hey, did I get to the right ribs? And Riddick is like, no, like, you ended up hitting just a body cavity. So Riddick pulls the blade out and turns this girl and then stabs her and kills her. So Vako ends up coming in and well, uh, like you making new friends, and Riddick's like, well, like, yeah, someone was sent to assassinate me. Who do you think it is? And Vako is like, well, like, it could be uh, any of many. And so Riddick has gone on to look at planets and he's trying to figure out where Furia is. And so Riddick is to go on and talk to Vako and just being like, well, hey, like, are you going to be the one that is to try to kill me, as he throws him the blade? Like, like, if anything, like, for how you kind of made the mistake and you didn't kill Lord Marshall, like, everybody's looking at you and everybody's second guessing you. So, like, hey, like, uh, what are you gonna do? Like, what's your next step? Are you gonna do something splashy and this and that? So Vako drops the blade and he's like, you know what? No. Like, if anything, I'm just kind of thinking of this early campaign. And so the story ends leading to Vako talking about how he was in Furia and how it seems that the Furians like were so like unstoppable, how they killed like a number of their men just with guns, and then once their guns ran out, like via like hand to hand combat, like the Furians just kind of wiped them out also. And but still, like, Vako is to say, it's like, well, yeah, but like uh but we dwindled down the numbers of the Furians. And so Vako is to tell Riddick here, it's like, well, hey, here's the bargain that I want to say here is that Vako wants to transcend, and so since he is to be the only one that has any knowledge about Furia, like Vako is willing to trade that knowledge to then transcend, and so Vako is like, okay, like, well, hey, like, you want this, I want this. So Riddick is like, okay, like, have me, like, take a ship and like have some necromongers come with me, and and we'll and we'll get to Furia. So Riddick is going with a necromonger named Crone and some other necromongers. So Riddick makes his way to Furia, and after some time of just kind of assessing this planet and then grabbing some sand or grabbing some dirt onto the ground and kind of putting it between his fingers, Riddick realizes that this is all a ruse, that this can't be Furia, and in his mind, this is some planet, but it's not Furia. So Riddick ends up getting, of course, upset with these necromongers and firing upon them and killing them. And Cronus then go on and blast the rock around Riddick to then have this kind of chain reaction or uh, rock slide of all these rocks to hopefully try and kill Riddick. To where Crone ends up telling Riddick, it's like, well, yeah, like if you die here, I get to keep what I kill. So I get to be you. So Riddick goes on to fall into this slide, and then that's where he ends up getting injured, and so that's where he goes on to be in the coffin, and we'll kind of um, get back to um, this story here. So Riddick goes on after getting out of his weird uh, coffin like bed. He is to go on and find one of the places that house a jackal and finds a little baby one. So Riddick finds that these mud demons are to seemingly poison anything it touches. So Riddick goes on to find that the smallest mud demons have the most poison. So he has to grab and find one of those and take the poison out of them, and then go on to start to slowly but surely like uh poison the dog a little bit and then also poison himself so he can go on and eventually go up against these mud demons and not get killed quite so easily. Because eventually Riddick realizes that there is some promised land past these rocks, but he has to get through this mud demon to get through there. So here's where a lot of time has passed, and so Riddick is to go on and uh, build up a tolerance to this poison as well as the jackal does. So Riddick goes on to finally face off against this mud demon, but this time around he has this just kind of bone sword of a thing. And so we have this demon that goes on and is using its tail at first, and so Riddick is like, "Well, yeah, I need that smiling face. Like, show me those teeth." So the mud demon ends up showing its face and then latching on to Riddick's leg, and that is where Riddick is to kind of on both like sides, just kind of just swipe and chop off the head of this mud demon, and we then go on to find as Riddick has finally slayed this mud demon that he realizes that the jackal is to kind of uh, escaped and kind of made its way to this location. So now Riddick has to kind of grab this jackal and then run off with them. So Riddick has to go on and like find that there is another big mud demon here. So he slices into him, and it seems that the mud demon either eats itself or eats its other uh, mud demon. So Rick ends up kind of looking and weirdly just like, ugh, about that. So Riddick goes on to like, okay, now I've made it to the promised land. I've made it to the place that seems to have more water and has like seemingly grass and everything like that. So Riddick continues on to make his way to this station called Mercenary Station P7, and so Riddick finds this P7 station, and he finds these MREs, and so now Riddick is to be sharing his food with this jackal that is to seemingly be all grown up, and is to like, hey, here's dog food, and the dog looks at the dog food and pees on it. So, and then they eat kind of their reserved of what's left together. So they get to this station, and so like, okay, well, like we have like normal food here and nuts and like pistachio nuts and like so it seems that all good as well, and they can kind of bathe themselves. But then they also realize that this is a mercenary or a merc station, so they're like, well, like if Rick does call for this beacon and call for help, he's really just going to get all these mercenaries that want to kill him because, of course, they do, because there's always a bounty seemingly on Riddick's head. So, and come to find out that this bounty is double if Riddick is dead. So, and Riddick is like, okay, that's different. So, Riddick, the longer and longer that he just kind of stays here and just kind of waits things out, the more he all of a sudden realizes that there is this cloud that is kind of making its way. And when Riddick kind of looks into this cloud, he notices that there is a bunch of mud demons, like all like kind of compounded in within this rain cloud. So that forces Riddick's hand to just be like, well, like I guess like we couldn't have stayed here forever. So Riddick goes on and is to call for the beacon, and that forces two mercenary ships to show. Like at first, it's Santana's ship with Santana and Diaz and all these other people, and interestingly enough, Riddick ends up having this uh like thing said on this station. It's like, well, hey, uh like leave one ship here and and then we'll be good. And so Diaz is like, one ship, like what does this guy think that we'll have a spare? It's like, yeah, because he'll go on and like he's chess moved you, and he knows that there's going to be multiple ships that come and try to get his collar, and so there's going to be plethora of men that Riddick is going to have to kill here. So Santana is to go on and have this prior prisoner within his ship that Luna is to free. So this prisoner is to be Sunhill, KL Sunhill. So Santana so Luna like, well, yeah, like this girl is just dead weight, so get rid of her. So Luna ends up telling Sunhill, it's like, well, hey, get out of here. And Sunhill's like, what planet is this? And he's just like, well, hey, like, it's water and like it's air and like just like get out of here before Santana changes his mind. So as soon as Sunhill starts running from the ship to get out of here, we have Santana that shoots her and kills her, and he says like, well, I was growing a little attached. Really just saying that like more than likely what Santana was probably thinking of reasons to just kill her is like, well, like if anything, I don't want her working alongside with Riddick, or I don't want her seeking revenge, and so why not just kind of kill her and just realize that Riddick is supposedly the bigger fish. So Santana's going on and letting Riddick know as they set up the Cyclops and all these other gadgets and whatever. Uh, Santana's going on and saying how he's like the shot caller uh, and this and that of uh, of this group, and that he sees all and he knows all and this and that, and like one of the guys are looking and like seriously, like this guy is like like really boosting it up, and it's just like, well, he might as well like. So Santana is going on and telling Riddick that he has this box that's going to have his head being placed in it. So Riddick eventually later goes on and is to just kind of mock him for that and just be like, "Hey, you're the box guy. You're the box boy." And Santana is like what? And Riddick's like, "Yeah, like you said that you have a box." And and Santana's like, well, like, doesn't everybody have a box? Like, I think Diaz here has a box. Like, don't you have a box, Diaz? Yeah, I do have a box. All right. so, so they go on and they come to find out that Big John's uh, ship is also landing. And Santana is trying to go on and communicate with these people ahead of time, just like, hey, you guys don't need to land here. Like, we answered the beacon, and come to find out it's another Merc ship. So, the Merc ship has Johns on here, and has a number of, like, the Katie Sackhoff character, and just these other kind of Mercs. And if Santana's ship is to be the more just kind of like blue collar, just kind of very like disheveled, uh, like guys. Like this is to be the more elite group, coming from John's that has, uh, kind of more of this like armor and matching suits and ties and get-ups and whatever. And Diaz even makes the joke about like, well, I didn't know that there was a dress code. So John's lands, and so immediately he's like calling the shots where he's like, "Well, yeah, like we could do some water, and like we can definitely use some solid ground and this and that." And so John is talking to Santana here and is trying to kind of put the pieces together of what Santana has gone on and done so far, and like see if they can kind of cooperate and work together. And Santana's like, yeah, you know what? Like, I don't need to know anything about you, and if anything, I'm just gonna call you too late. Like, you're too late. That's what I'm gonna call you. So, they definitely don't want to go on and work together until a point where Santana starts to thin out some of his numbers, and like John's group is just kind of sitting around, just kind of like, okay, we're just gonna wait to see if they need us, and then we're gonna go on like, oh, you need us now? Oh, what a coincidence! So, so they set up this Cyclops. So night passes. So Rick decides that he's gonna go up against these guys during nighttime instead of during the day, which then leads uh, John's group to then go after Riddick during the day. But so they set up this whole Cyclops thing, and the whole thing of this problem is that this thing relies on a sensor. So firstly, we have the Cyclops that goes on and is to have the antenna like detect there is just some dingo dongo out there, and so Diaz tries to shoot it and scare it, but it doesn't actually kill it, and so like Santana ends up telling Diaz to just wipe it out, and then he just shoots it and scares it. So, but then he lies and he says that he shot it and he killed it, but he didn't. So and then they later realize, like, oh, is that the same Dingo Dongo from before? Yeah, it's the exact same one. All right. So, come to find out that the jackal ends up going on and ripping out this sensor and then handing it to Riddick. And so Riddick ends up just kind of smashing the sensor. And so the Cyclops is just going wild. So Santana goes on and realizes that there's a bad sensor out there, so he then has to go on and kind of run out there to replace this sensor. And that then leads to having Doll's character, Katie Sackhoff's character, is to go on and do this whole kind of report of what's missing from what was on this sheet. So immediately the morphine is missing. It's like, okay, that reminds me of like the very first movie uh where William Johns is going on and taking all the morphine. And so we also have them mention that there is a number of bear traps that are all going missing, or huge traps that are going missing. So Johns ends up calling out to Santana. It's like, well, hey, like you made a sweep once you got here to make sure that there wasn't any traps placed, right? And Santana's like, no. And then it's going to his detriment because one of his men falls into one trap and then falls into the other. Because the very first thing that one of Santana's one of Santana's men steps on, like they think it's some mine or some bear trap or whatever, but it ends up just being this metal piece. The guy just kind of shoves into his clothing because like, hey, yeah, upper armor. And then he falls right into one trap and then falls into the other and dies and gets killed because he gets chopped up in little pieces. So Santana's realizing that there's a possibility that all of these traps are all over the goddamn place and that they should try to get the equipment out to then try and find it. But then as Santana's going on and telling Luna this, Luna's radio goes out. So we have Vargas. Vargas is with Falco. So I think Vargas is the guy that is very superstitious and is telling Falco, it's like, well, hey, you done jinxed us, you done jinxed or janked or whatever, and so the two of them are collectively like back to back with one another, and as Vargas is to just kind of be back to back and his face is to be in front of the screen, we find that Riddick ends up snatching Valco and dragging him off. We'll come to find that Riddick ends up using Falco in a trap later on. So Vargas is to by the end of this whole night, just collect up all the bodies, and so they end up assessing how much damage that, of course, Riddick had gone on to do, and so they'd gone on and killed three men, and they're like, well, no, he only killed two men and one's missing. It's like we might as well just assume that he's going to be dead also. So Santana ends up going in and talking to Johns and just being like, well, okay, like I guess we should really start working together now. And like, but he tries in so much of a way to not ask to work with him, but to just get his equipment. And so guys like Moss goes over to the equipment and it's like, hey, like, do you want to work with Santana? And the equipment's like, well, no. And so Santana's like, well, just come on. So uh so at one point also Santana is starting to speak Spanish, and Don ends up getting upset and starts punching the crap out of Santana. His nose starts bleeding because he broke his nose, or she broke his nose. And I was like, yeah, freaking Katie. And yeah. Uh, but like, that's the fun never ends with Katie in this film. So we we go on to then have them realize that like, well, hey, like we should probably go on and like we should also like take the nodes from our ships and put them in this kind of little coven thing and keep it locked in there, so that way if Riddick is to come by to try to figure out if he can grab one of the ships and take off with it, then we'll kind of keep him kind of imprisoned within the ship and he has nowhere to go. So they go on and they take these notes and they put them in this cupboard and they have this kind of lock that uh, could be explosive. So, excuse me. So Riddick goes on to sneak his way into getting closer to uh, the mercenaries as John's team is going off to these caves to try and investigate because he had gone on to spot that these caves could be a place where Riddick is kind of hanging his hat. So John and the rest of his kind of militia or whatever, they end up going out to these caves, and so they end up finding where uh, Riddick had just kind of been staying for a while, and they do that by going on and shooting uh, the dingo or the jackal with a tracker dart and then tracking him down. So they find this cave, and they end up finding who they thought would be Riddick, and so they start uh, firing into this shadowy figure that they come to find out is Falco, and so they're like, well, like this guy was going to be dead anyways, so we might as well just confirm that he's dead now. So they make their way back, realizing that there's a possibility that Riddick could go on and try to figure out a way to get to these nodes. And so that then leads everybody racing back to this station. And so Riddick is going to, at this point, just so easily give himself up because he kind of technically has to because time is running out and he has to kind of make a bargain with these people. So Rick has gone on while everybody is trying to find him in his hideout. Rick is sneaking around and he's on top of the ship. He's stealing uh, Doll's uh, makeup kit so he can use a mirror to find their nodes and realize that one of them is missing on the ship, and going on and writing in blood fair play or fair trade as Santana and Doll are fighting again because after Doll is to go on and take a shower where she starts to get her clothes in all the glory of clothes of the clothing. It's so creepy. But anyways, uh, and then also it's kind of funny that Riddick ends up making the joke about her toenails are the same color as her nipples because he immediately he saw some of that. So so as Doll gets out of the shower and is looking at Santana, and Doll's like, okay, you have 2 minutes and you need to be out there and you need to be doing something. And so Dolan's winning the 2 minutes and Santana is still doing boatloads of nothing. So that's where Doll finally is just so upset with Santana, just starts beating the crap out of him because Santana assumes like, well, hey, we should just kind of stick around here and kind of because we know that Riddick is going to get to try to get to this cupboard. So everybody makes it back to this station and they realize that they need to double check that the nodes are still there. And so Riddick is going on and forcing these guys into a fear that maybe some goofy way how that Santana had kind of lost his necklace without him knowing, and that had this key in it to get to this lock. So he could have weirdly adjusted the combination bizarrely. I don't know how they have to assume that. Like, it's just a weird suspense thing that I think just doesn't quite work. It just makes people look stupid. But so we have Santana that goes on. It's like, okay, well, let's make sure that the two nodes are there. So he ends up going on and fixing this lock with this key to open it up, and realizes that the two nodes are there. Like, okay, everything's fine, and so they just bizarrely at this point, like they just keep the cupboard open without the explosive lock on it. So I'm like, okay, what was the point of that? To have that thing there. So Riddick is to try to go on and scare the guys outside. And so here's where Riddick is to finally bargain with them because he realizes that, like, hey, like, we only have so much time left. We only have 24 hours before this this rain cloud comes over uh, to this station, and like the ships are here. So, anyways, what Riddick does is he ends up finding Moss. Is Moss is to realize that Riddick is to go on and be on top of this building. So Moss is to make his way around, and Riddick grabs Moss and is like, "Hey, like you think that I'm scared, or you think that like you should be scared of me? Like if anything, you're wrong. You should be scared of something else." And so Rick leaves Moss alive, and then Moss ends up explaining uh, to the other guy that he's working with, like, "Well, hey, like I just saw Riddick. And he talked to me, and he told me this." And it's like, okay, that seems unusual. So we then go on to have Riddick, who pushes everybody outside, and then he bargains with them. So he bargains with them, and he's like, "Well, hey, like, how about we go on and like I take one ship, you take one ship, and then we'll leave and we'll just call it quits, and like that'll be the end of it." And Santana is just like, "No, like we still obviously have enough numbers here that like we can possibly take them." And so also like they're not going to give up their ships. So Riddick goes on and is to go off and is to grab the nodes without these guys knowing and hide them somewhere. And he's giving these guys 24 hours to go on and make this deal. So, or maybe no wait, maybe Riddick goes on and like once he gets unchained, that's when he grabs the nodes. That's probably how this plays out. So, but either way, like Riddick was giving them this 24-hour ultimatum. So Riddick goes on to get tranquilized darted 3 times by a doll. And so it seems that Riddick is slowly but surely starting to fall, but then he gets back up and sort of like, "Man, go down, go down." And so also the Jackal is coming into this fight and trying to bite and tear Santana, and Santana goes and shoots Jackal in the face, in like the cheek, and then he dies. So rest in peace, Jackal. Sadly, so the only thing that possibly Riddick loved. So Riddick goes down, and so they drag him back and they chain him. And when Riddick wakes up, he's like, "Man, like, you guys are eventually gonna go on and unchain me. And as soon as you unchain me, I'm gonna kill Santana 5 seconds after you do so." And Santana's like, "Well, how are you gonna do that?" It's like with your own machete. So John finally wants to go on and talk about how his son died, because when they meet up and Riddick is making this 24-hour bargain, he then reveals who he is, that he is uh, John's father. And so he's like, "Ah, the son." So we have Riddick that is to have to go on and explain to John what had happened to William in the very first film. And so slowly but surely, like Riddick explains that he survived the crash, but he didn't survive that planet. So at some point, John figures out like, okay, so like my son died on that planet, and more than likely it was by your hands. And so eventually, Riddick, the further and further we get here, to where now when they get to the nodes and Riddick unburies them, Riddick then goes on and tells John, it's like, oh yeah, like your son, like he didn't have a spine, and he was willing to kill Jack and to save himself, and so that's where, of course, Riddick is to go on until John's here. It's like, well, hopefully, the lack of spine isn't a family trait. So, because eventually John's is to make this bargain with Riddick to get to these nodes to have them escape out of here. Because eventually, when they start to try and face off against these mud demons, Lockspur ends up shooting one of the mud demons outside this window, and the mud demon goes through the wall and slices into his stomach, and then just goes on and just kills Lockspur. So the guys just start to unload uh, all their bullets onto this window, and so then they turn around and try to lock all the windows and everything that they can, but they realize that these like mud demons are just kind of bashing through. So this is where Johns like makes this deal with Riddick. So Riddick goes on to have his foot get unlocked, and Santana's like, "Oh no, 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 we're not doing this." And so with Santana going on and being so close to Riddick, Riddick ends up going on to kick uh Santana like away from him, and goes on to like juggle this blade with his foot and then cut off uh Santana's like part of head, and then the head flops off and goes in the jar, as of course Riddick is to slide the jar, and I'm like, man, all this stuff is just kind of weirdly working perfectly together. And so they're like, man, like you did say that you were gonna use that jar, and you did say that you were gonna kill this guy, and you did say you were gonna kill him with the machete, and Riddick is like, well, yeah, I I I I keep my promises. So the guys now have to go out on these hog jet things that they used, or these jet hogs before. These kind of hover bike things that they used to find Riddick's hideout. So now they're going back out there. Diaz is in one of them. Dave Batiste is in one of them, and Johns is in one of them, and then Riddick is one of them. So they're going out there because they need to get to these nodes. So Riddick ends up unburying them, and here's where Riddick ends up revealing to John about his son being a drug addict and being spineless. And John's like, well, that's not the son that I know. And so it's like, well, like, but it's the truth. Like, Riddick's not gonna lie to you. So they find the nodes, and then like Diaz tried to go on and try to bump off Johns uh off of his jet hog, so it kind of ruined uh uh John's bike, and John starts to like just fire at all these mud demons, and he all of a sudden sees just Rick just sitting there. It's like, hey man, like you could have helped me out, and Rick is like, well, I could have, but I didn't have any weapons with me. Like you said that I couldn't have weapons. So John and Riddick get on the bike together, and then they haul to where the nodes are. So now there's only two of these jet hogs left. So as soon as they get the nodes out, and so Diaz decides that he's going to go on and he's going to go and just kind of take out Johns, but not kill him. And Diaz is like, oh, okay, well now, Riddick, that you've kind of started out the murder spree. Like I'm gonna finish it for you. And so Diaz is going on and trying to like do this kind of weird stretch thing, and Riddick ends up just kind of powering out of it, and then chopping Diaz in half because he ended up having this big massive bone with this sword that attached to it. And so John's just thinking like, well, hey, you had that blade there for a reason. Like you obviously were gonna kill whoever was going to come with you to get these nodes. And Riddick is like, well, hey, like the thing was there regardless. So they come to realize that Diaz sabotaged uh his own bike also. And so the two of them realize, like, okay, well, we need to go and we need to bring back these nodes on foot. And so this is where like the cool action climaxes happen here. So Diaz and Riddick are fighting out uh, these mud demons, and we have Riddick that goes on and he accidentally gets stabbed in the chest, and he's bleeding out pretty good. And so John's just decided to grab uh, the nodes uh, from Riddick and then chase off to go back to the ships to be like, well, hey, we have the nodes. Like, let's get the heck out of here. As uh, Luna uh, and Doll's character are on the ship, just kind of uh, waiting for, of course, John's to come back. So, and weirdly enough, like the nodes have to be like perfectly in sync with the ship. Like you can't just go on and just get any random nodes. And I thought that was just kind of weird. Uh, because they have to go on and figure out some kind of weird, goofy science to like make them perfectly synced or sync together. It's not like just a normal battery. So it's kind of weird how they figured that out in the first film. But anyways, so I guess that didn't matter then because that was in the past. So they go on and they get the nodes in the ship, and you're thinking that they're gonna just fly off and like, well, like I guess this is the end of Riddick. He's gonna go on and face off all against these monsters all on his own. He's probably gonna die. He also had gone on and found this rock that ends up kind of burning his wound. So Riddick is facing off all these demons, and he has this rock that he goes on and he's trying to like beat down these monsters. And he chucks the bone, and then he's like, oh, he's defenseless. What is he gonna do? And then he's like facing and holding off this one mud demon. Then we come to find that John's ship ends up coming in and blasting away all of the monsters. So it's kind of like the finale of Pitch Black, where Riddick is like, "Well, we can't leave until we say goodnight," and then he like bashes through all the monsters and kills them all. So they then go on and have Dahl come through this like rope retrieval to get Riddick, and Rick had gone on and said like, "Well, yeah, and I'm gonna get balls deep into Dahl, but I'm only gonna do it uh, if she asks me, all sweet like." And Dahl had already set up in this movie that she doesn't F guys, and then also like Santana goes on and tells Dahl, it's like, well, like there's something that we have in common. I don't F guys either, and like there's so much good dialogue here that I kind of quickly fast paced through and just kind of got to the point here. And there's probably just a number of scenes that I'm just kind of really fast tracking through just to get this review done because I know that people are going to want a really quick review. So check out the movie if you haven't, because more than likely I'm doing it a massive disservice by going into my line of dialogue. So Riddick is giving a ship, John is being given a ship, and John ends up telling Riddick, it's like, well, like, hey, wherever you're going, don't tell me where you're going because I don't want to know. I don't think I want to know. And so, like, Riddick is going on and telling John, it's like, well, hey, uh, keep that spine strong. And like, he's going on and saying goodbye to all these guys. And so Rick goes off and and he leaves to make his way back to the necromonger ship because he has to go on and talk to Vaco to try and find Furia. So that leads Riddick making his way back to Crone, and so through Crone, Riddick finds out what happened to Vaco, and then so Riddick then like kind of slowly pushes this blade into Crone, killing him, and then uh Riddick finds that Vaco has transcended, so now Riddick has to go on and kind of chase after him, and that's how the movie finishes up. So, with that said, uh, really, I think that covers most of this movie. I really bashed and thrashed through it. Uh, yeah, I think that's all that I really wanted to say about this film, as well as also, uh, there is not much like in the spoiler things for me to go on and have little notes because like there's nothing that I knew much about this film, as well as also there wasn't much for me to like have like any criticisms or any kind of just like, yeah, this reminds me of so and so film, because basically like again, like Pitch Black and Riddick in a lot of ways are very same. So yeah, so with that said, I'm going to get the heck out of here so I can have another video to put out. Wow, like it's surprising. A video that's only uh like an hour and change instead of the usual 2 hours. But I'm sure I'll probably talk for way absurdly long than normal. And it is kind of weird because like the actual movie is like almost 2 hours. And surprisingly, like there's probably just a lot of dialogue in this film that are just gonna bash and thrash through. But other than that, I'm gonna go on and get the heck out of here so I can be able to just put out another video today. So, uh, recently things after this, I may go on and I may at some point. I said in another video that I'm probably going to review the Jean Claude Van Damme movie Lionheart, and at some point also I'm probably going to go into probably Power Rangers again to continue that series review. Some exactly timelining exactly when this video is going to be put out and reviewed and whatever. Um, by what I've kind of said I'm reviewing, and then it probably never actually gets done, or may actually get done. Who knows? Um, really, also, I guess at this point, uh, any probably movies that I'm probably gonna assume is gonna go well for the channel is not gonna go well for the channel, or is gonna be like the slowest, snailest pace, like that it may just kind of consistently keep getting views, but logically it's never going to actually just all of a sudden in one day just get 1,000 views all in one day or whatever. That's just never gonna happen anymore. So uh like man were the days where like I can get a decent amount of views on a video, because oftentimes I think those were like new releases, but like that's really rarefied air. Current, like you have to find the most like trending but nichest thing that you could possibly find that no one else has ever gone on to review it and talk about it, and also um, be like me, that is to find a way for people to go on and see it that would not have it so easily be found otherwise. So, with that said, I'm going to get the heck out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. Let me know in the comments below what is your favorite whatever movie. Maybe it's already been reviewed on this channel, or maybe it's a like show. Like, let me know your favorite show. Logically, if you've watched through this whole thing, I'll just be like, oh, okay, well I know that now that you watched this whole video. But anyways, goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.